Howdy do! So for today's weekly Jinx video, and for those that don't know, every Wednesday on this channel we do a Jinx video of some sort about anything to do with Jinx, and you decide that topic in the comments section down below. As well as this video acting as a weekly discussion thread video on the Jinx subreddit, League of Jinx, feel free to check that out. And every 2 weeks we do this thing where we go over the patch and how it affects Jinx, if there's changes to Jinx, and if there's not changes to Jinx specifically, changes most likely to other AD carries that could affect in her matchups. But furthermore, there actually are some changes that might affect Jinx depending when it comes to runes, lethal tempo, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So in other words, this can kind of act like for some people depending a tier list, because then you can decide what AD carries are powerful or are weak that you do or do not want to play against, either as Jinx or in general. So without further ado, the first champion we're going to talk about is Graves. Now, I know he's not a bot lane AD carry, but I will talk about him and his changes briefly, because there is talk right now about seeing if they can make it so that lane Graves and Nidalee can come back. In which case, this change won't be the change that brings lane Graves back, but it might be the start of changes that do that. So in case that ends up being the case, I thought I would at least briefly touch on them. His health growth is being increased and his R cooldown is being decreased. His health growth is going from 84 to 92, and his collateral damage on his R cooldown is going from 120, 180 to 110, 85, and 60. Again, not really the biggest changes, because that probably isn't the change in itself that brings him back to lane. Thought I would throw that in there just in case it's like the start of changes over a couple patches that eventually move him there. So now you have aware that if he ever does go back down there, his ultimate once he hits 6 is going to be on a lower cooldown for trades or something like that. One of the more actual AD carry centric changes is Caixa. Her health regeneration and health regen growth are being decreased, and her Q damage ratio is being increased. Basically, in her earlier patches, Caixa was struggling by getting through the laning phase, so they boosted her laning phase with some buffs. As players continue to learn how to play her, they're kind of stripping that strength away. And obviously there's the argument, well, Caixa was actually already good, people just didn't take enough time to learn how to play her before they started crying for buffs. Whatever the case is, they're kind of now dialing back on some of those now that people have finally learned how to play Caixa pretty well. So on her base stats, her base health regeneration is going from 6.2 to 5.5. Her health regeneration growth is going from 0.75 to 0.55. On her Q, Cathian Rain, the damage ratio is going from 0.4 bonus attack damage to 0.35 bonus attack damage. The 6 missile damage ratio is going from 1 bonus attack damage to 0.0875 bonus attack damage, and the 12 missile damage ratio is going from 1.72 bonus attack damage to 1.505 bonus attack damage. Now when it comes to Caixa, trading with Caixa and stuff like that, one of the biggest things we mentioned the last time Caixa was really in one of these videos is the fact that they did change her auto attack range. It now matches Jinx's minigun range of the 525. So in terms of trading, she can now trade with Jinx in a minigun form. The thing Caixa usually has to worry about, of course, is fish bones. That will outrange her, the rocket launcher, as the lane goes on. When it comes to Caixa though, and her all-ins and her damage potential, it was increased in a way that her combo could work a bit more effectively, of course. With these changes, I don't really see that changing when it comes to the Jinx Caixa matchup in particular all that much. Of course, if I'm wrong, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Like if you're a Caixa player watching this video and you want to add your input, that's totally okay. But this matchup won't really change drastically one way or another. Caixa's still in a pretty decent, strong state, and I'm not saying she's overpowered or anything like that. I am saying if the matchup was a certain way, it's really going to probably still be the certain way it kind of is right now for laning phase. These changes will really probably be a bit more impactful when this champion scales outside of laning phase, in which case it really doesn't have anything to do with Jinx in the laning phase specifically, so there's that. The next AD carry change actually is to Varus. They kind of did a little bit of a tweaking of how he actually works. His W on hit damage is decreased, but his W now has an active which empowers Varus' next Q to deal bonus damage. Basically, Piercing Arrow is Varus' most iconic spell, and it's pretty underwhelming in many of his current builds. So they're not looking to change the way he builds, but they do want to create more incentives for him to care about charging his Qs even when he's building on hit. Given that he was pretty balanced before, they're adding a whole new active requires them to trim power on him so that he's not excessive. So pretty much on his passive, Living Vengeance, the bonus attack speed on champion kill is going from 50% to 30%, and the bonus attack speed on minion kill is going from 25% to 15%. On his W, Blighted Quiver, the on-hit damage is going from 10, 14, 18, 22, and 26 to 5, 9, 13, 17, and 21. There's a new active. Varus' next Q, Piercing Arrow, deals additional damage equal to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10% of the target's missing HP. Damage is increased up to 50% to 9, 10.5, 12, 13.5, and 50% base damage on charge time. or based on charge time, I should say, not base damage, that's just based on charge time. This matchup might be one that actually changes a bit more than it usually did, and obviously for more than just Jinx even, but when it comes to trades, for example, what some Varuses would do is it would last hit a minion, then try to attack the enemy champion they were laning against, so that way they could have the bonus attack speed on the passive already going. This will decrease the attack speed that they will get if they do that tactic, and of course Jinx with the built-in attack speed on her minigun means that she kind of wins a little bit more now with that particular interaction. Now, what does this change overall? Is it does mean that no matter what Varus is building, so if it's a crit meta and Varus actually wants to be a crit champion, his Qs and stuff like that will still function pretty well with the crit build, like it would with the on-hit build or otherwise. So a lethality build even. It all works the same kind of way, making the Q a bit more efficient and effective kind of for what it does. Since they see that as his most iconic ability as an archer, they wanted that to be kind of be able to be prevalent and relevant in every kind of build that he does. So Qs are something that you kind of already had to dodge, and despite what he might be building now, is something you still kind of really want to dodge anyway. Get your dancing shoes on, pretty much. With the final AD carry change kind of being to Xayah, the base health regen decrease, base attack damage decrease, Xayah is currently able to coast through hard matchups and get to her strong mid-late game too easily. So her base regen is going from 6 to 5, and her base attack damage is going from 64 to 62. Basically, they want to make Xayah's lane phase in a harder matchup harder, so that way it's not really kind of still an easier matchup and she can still get her items, and that insane powerful late game that much easier. So in terms of laning phase, if you're really good at harassing Xayah, it kind of depends on you, the player, more so I think. If you're someone who risks going in with the rockets despite the feather placements and just getting a lot of damage down on Xayah, the regen's going to be a lot slower. So unless they have a Dorn shield, they're not going to regen maybe as fast as they kind of do. Not saying that they regen insanely fast at the moment, but if you've noticed that's something that kind of has kept you back from really pushing a Xayah out of lane, maybe these changes will help that a little bit more, especially if you're more aggressive of a Jinx player in lane phase against this champion. Now, one of the things I also want to mention that we touched on earlier was there are some Lethal Temple changes. When Lethal Temple was first introduced, Jinx and some other DPS AD carries were thought to be the champions that would abuse this the most and be very powerful with this. As we've gone on with this season, we've noticed Lethal Temple's kind of just been irrelevant, so that's not really been the case. Some people still do take it, of course, and it's not completely, absolutely terrible if you ask different Jinx players, but it's not something they really go to. They go for the fleet footwork or even press the attack over this more times than not. So the changes to it are, the attack speed bonus has been increased. Lethal Tempo still isn't doing well on most champions, so they're increasing the strength of the effect. The attack speed is going from 30 to 80% at levels 1 through 18 to 40 to 110% at levels 1 through 18. So like a little bit more attack speed, a little bit more bang for your buck if you're going to risk taking it over the other things. And that kind of really does it. Actually, this patch really didn't have a lot of main changes in it. It was mainly champion driven and then a lot of bug fixes and like smaller stuff like sweeper trinket changes and how the cooldown will be when you swap those things, and the home start guard, how long that buff lasts at the beginning of the game. Not really a lot beyond those champion changes, and nothing really to Jinx particular, just the matchup changes. So that's all for this video. So in the comment section down below, if you want to have a more in-depth discussion about these changes, or you have a different opinion about something that I've mentioned in this video, feel free to talk about it in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for watching this video if you did. I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care, GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching.